the architecture of the royalty of Madagascar. So when we left that building, we walked down, oh, this is how the French depicted her, as the French depicted most monarchs who they sent to Algeria in exile. When we went down the street from this place at the top of the hill, we found this place. And burnt out, just a shell, which was Queen Ranulovan's the First's palace. At the time it was built with French slavery, because that's what Ranulovanna the First did. It was the largest wooden building in the world. She was a piece of work herself. When she took power, she was on the throne before her husband's retainers realized that she was going to take power, and she had them all killed. And she eventually had half the population of the country, which was 5 million people at the time, killed by various and nasty means. She had pikes with English and French heads around that palace, she reimposed slavery, so she was a darling of sorts. What she would do, one of the things she would do, is she killed all the Christians after allowing Christianity into the country, and she would take them to the edge of where the rover was, and she'd dangle them off the cliff, and then she'd drop them, and then she'd pull them up, and with the understanding that they would be saved, and then she'd cut the ropes. So that was Queen Ranulovanna the First. She had a particularly nasty ordeal called the Tangena ordeal. Now Tangena is a tree, member of the oleander family, which has a very potent cardiac glycoside as a poison inside it. And it's almost like digoxin, but about 20 times more powerful. And her ordeal consisted of feeding you 3 pieces of chicken fat and a Tangena nut, and waiting. And if you successfully vomited up the 3 pieces of chicken fat, you were innocent of the crime which you were accused of committing. If you subsequently died from the poison, well, that was just the way things were. But if you didn't vomit up 3 pieces, and you didn't die, she made sure you did die because you were cleared a liar. And it was a different time, you know. So she had gates around the city and around Amboamanga, and she had these huge stones which took 20 men to wheel into position every night so that the place couldn't be invaded. And as you can see, it only takes one Kiwi girl, one hand to push them back. But so they're all over the place. When I went to Madagascar, I wanted to see all the biodiversity that I could in all the geographic climatic regions that I could. So there's the north, the high plateau, which we landed in, the east, the west, the southern rainforest, and the southern dry forest. So we went east, west, southwest, and then we flew to the north. So this is the trail in red of the eastern route. One of the places we wanted to visit was a reptile farm called Paireiras. And it has the most amazing collection of chameleons and snakes and geckos and lizards, all kinds and descriptions. Magnificent place. The Malagasy have an expression like a chameleon, one eye on the future and one eye on the past. That's a gecko, that's not a chameleon, just for those of you interested. But there are bandits, okay? There are bandits who are very wealthy. And the one in the middle of this schematic is this fellow on the left upper corner. His name is Anson Wong. He's from Malaysia, and he's a multi-billionaire from all of the smuggling he's done in conjunction with FedEx to ship various reptiles around the world. His specialty was the very rare golden plowshare tortoise that you see next to that. What he did is he actually invaded a reserve dedicated by the Malagasy for the protection of these animals in the southwest, stole 55 of them, and made 6 million pounds, British pounds, from that theft alone. The guy on the bottom right is named Tommy Critchfield. He's from Florida. He's been in jail as well. His specialty is breeding, and what he does is he steals reptiles from around the world, and he inbreeds them so that he only gets albinism from the results, and he sells the white offspring for huge sums of money to collectors. In April of this year, if you see this double-storied house here, there was a raid because the citizens of Toliara couldn't stand the smell anymore. They found 10,000 reticulated tortoises in this house, in every part of the house. And they were due to get somewhere in the order of $600 million, okay, from the export, the illegal export of this. So this still goes on. And that's just one example of the kind of banditry that we encounter. On the roads, people sell ducks, but they also sell animals called tenrics, which are endangered marsupials. And that's for your cooking pot as well. It's a beautiful place. Now we're going down towards the ocean. And you have to stop for lunch, and if you stop for lunch on the road in Madagascar, you get to go to something called a hoteli. And hotelis, you have a choice of rice and some other animal. Because instead of the animal, you get the animal's bones. So you can have rice and fish bones, or rice and duck bones, or anyway, that was that story. The roads are eviscerating. They are just unbelievable. I've never seen roads like this in my life, and I've been a few places. There are roads that run out in the middle of nowhere. So anyway, we finally got down. Oh, the roads, by the way, are maintained not by the government, because the minister, for some reason, steals all the money that's supposed to go to the roads. It's the young orphans that maintain the roads and fill the potholes, and then try and stop trucks for a couple of cents for their labor. There's no there's no security net in Madagascar. There are thieves that siphon off the petrol trucks, petrol as they come up from Tomasina on the east coast, and there's a huge residua of French colonial attitude. There were two elderly women, French women, colonists, that ran into the back of us. Just I thought we were done, but then a bush taxi ran to the back of them, so I thought they were done. Anyway, when I tried to see if they were okay, they said, "Nous parlons français seulement ici." We speak only French here. And that was the end of it. They went to the next town to complain about my driver, who had a favor owing from the police chief, and I don't think they made out very well. But the French in Madagascar are sort of like the French who were in Algeria. Some of them haven't really grown out of the spirit of colonialism. This is what the French also did on the east coast. They built a canal called the Pangalanas Canal, which is 160 kilometers long, if you can imagine how much work that took, so that they wouldn't have to use the Indian Ocean and get tossed all over the place. We went down it for 60 kilometers. It was an experience. It was joyous. It was wonderful. Because I didn't know about this place, but the guy I was dealing with did. It was called Le Palmarin. And there was a French guy who's collected all the lemurs in Madagascar, so they no longer get eaten or killed for any other reasons. And he's brought them to this one place. And there are reptiles, and there are all kinds of interesting flora. And there's villages nearby that come and perform for you in the evening. But it was the lemurs I had come to see, and I'll just give you a little history of that. You remember Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Well, he got a death sentence, medical death sentence, and he and Mark Cowarty went and they put pins in a world map to see where the most endangered species were. And then they went and they did a series on all of these creatures, and they published a book called Last Chance to See. And David Fry did it again with Mark Cowarty about 10 years later. So they came to Madagascar to see an ancient lemur called the eye. So when I got my diagnosis, for those of you that don't know, I'm supposed to be dead 2 years now, but for some reason they just haven't come and picked me up. I decided that instead of seeing all of the various endangered animals, I would concentrate on my cousins. So I was going to do primates. So a couple of years ago I went to Uganda, mountain gorillas. Last year went to Borneo, did the orangutans. And we obviously had to do the lemurs. It says better to die tomorrow than today. Agreed. So this place was unbelievable. There were black and white sificas in the trees. There were these common brown lemurs that wouldn't get off your head. I mean, it's really funny. The first time I saw one, I said, "Oh, isn't that cute?" And he flew at me and landed on my head. And then there's red lemurs, and And then there's brown and white Siphacas, and this one's called the crown lemur for obvious reasons. But the lemur that captured our hearts was this guy.
Whoa. Hi. Hi. How are you? Yeah, I'm here now. Where's your bananas? Isn't he beautiful? Hey, I'm waiting to call you. What a great call. We were looking for the other guy. Yeah.
But you'll do.
So this is a Indri. He's about this big, and he's big. And they came at us from all at once, and I thought, ooh. And they have a magnificent cry. It goes right down his spine. They call him Bakobo, which is the father of man. And there are all kinds of legends about how they predeceded humans. Magnificent beasts, endangered, magnificent. But there was one more lemur that I had to see, and that was the one that Douglas Adams had set out to see, and that was the eye. And there are very few of them left. In fact, they have to be kept isolated from humans and other sort of predators. There's a predator called the Fusa there. So we went across to this island at night, and we waited.
Whoa.
And there's the eye.
Whoa.
So Adams had something to say about him. He said, the eye is a nocturnal lemur. It's a very strange-looking creature that seems to have been assembled from bits of other animals. It looks a little like a large cat with bat's ears, a beaver's teeth, tail like a large ostrich feather, a middle finger like a long dead twig, and enormous eyes that seem to peer past you into a totally different world, which exists just over your left shoulder. When the Malagasy see these animals, they kill them on sight. Because it's thought, it's believed superstitiously, and they have a lot of superstitions called fadis, that if a lemur, or if this eye looks at you directly in the eye, you will die. And so they don't have a lot of patience for them. But the eyes don't know any of this, and they wander into towns and they look at your shoes. And they do have a special finger. It's a really special finger. And what they can do with that finger is they can heat it up. Okay, because they have an exothermic mechanism to heat up the tip of the finger. They're the woodpeckers of the lemurs, and they'll gnaw at wood and they'll find grubs underneath there. And it's positively gross what they do with their fingers to get the grubs out, but that's how they survive. And they